A follow-up now to a story that you first saw on Channel 11 News. Last night, we told you about a Pennsylvania consumer group which studied the cost of prescription drugs. The study claimed area seniors were overpaying as much as 234%. Tonight, Channel 11's Newlyn Archinal tells us where seniors can turn for help.
Whether you're a senior living in Allegheny County or anywhere in western Pennsylvania for that matter, you may be eligible for a program called PACE. It stands for Pharmaceutical Assistance Contract for the Elderly, and for some seniors, it is the answer to their prayers. 77-year-old Thomas Scholler is a veteran from Brighton Heights. He was supposed to retire almost 20 years ago, has to work now to make ends meet, and applying for PACE to help pay for prescription drugs.
I was self-employed. I ran a little business for 34 years, and I didn't put any money away.
We're volunteers, and we help the Department of Aging.
At the Allegheny Area Agency on Aging, volunteers constantly answer questions about prescription drug help. Here they refer callers to PACE. The agency says the program is a saving grace for seniors who have limited or no savings.
It's like striking a vein, hitting gold, because it's a wonderful program and it can really keep their health care costs down.
To qualify, you have to meet the following requirements. You must be 65 years or older. You must be a Pennsylvania resident at least for 90 days. If you're single, your income cannot exceed $14,000. For married couples, the income requirement is $17,200. Another program called PaceNet accepts people with slightly higher incomes. You can find an application at almost any area senior center or pharmacy. Fill it out, throw it in the mailbox. If you qualify, you should get your prescription card back in the mail in just a few months. On the north side, I'm Newlyn Archinal, Channel 11 News.
Weather coverage next. We'll go from rain to a chance of a little snow. Your up-to-the-minute forecast is next.
Plus, we're still working on new information on the lunchtime shooting at the Wilkinsburg McDonald's and Burger King. Don't go anywhere for up-to-the-second coverage.
This is Channel 11 Carnegie Science Center weather.
All right, rain showers have been kind of in and out in the Pittsburgh area today, and right now they're kind of back in Allegheny County. Our next wave of moderate rain can be seen out here to the north and to the west. In fact, I'm going to take you down a little closer into Beaver County, and here we are, Beaver Falls, Beaver, Midland, catching it pretty good and moving in on Aliquippa right now with moderate rain showers. Now, this is enough rain that there can be a ponded roadway or two there in the heart of Beaver County, and look for that to be sweeping into Ambridge and then points nearby into Wexford, Franklin Park, and Ingomar within the next 30 minutes or so. Also got some rain showers up into Lawrence County. That'll be moving into Butler County before too very long. Let's walk you through our 24-hour forecast, shall we? It looks like this. Scattered showers are going to be off and on here. We'll have them in place at midnight tonight, 40 degrees. A little cold front comes through, and that changes us over to some snow shower activity. There may be a little coating on grassy surfaces as we get on towards morning. 30 degrees at 6 a.m. with stray flurries left over. Windy with a few flurries at 33 degrees at 12 noon. 36 and mostly cloudy at 6 in the evening. And our statistical data for you, 54 degrees right now at Pittsburgh International. This has been another mild day. The average high is 42, 56 for a high, and 41 has been the lowest temperature of the day so far. 71% relative humidity, west winds going at 18 miles per hour, the pressure rising at 29.79, and so far 0.14 of an inch of rain at Pittsburgh International Airport. Here's the view from above as we take you back down towards Pittsburgh. Fair weather is dominating across the deep south, but the cloud cover is still holding sway, of course, in the northeastern sector, and the rain showers with the first of a couple of cool fronts that we're dealing with. And the second one is the one that actually packs the little bit of a punch that will drain in the colder air. Looking up to the north and west, Cleveland's down to 46, mid-40s up through Buffalo and Detroit, Alpena, Michigan down into the 30s, and we will see our temperatures take a little bit of a nosedive and just struggle to get up through the mid-30s for a high temperature tomorrow as the cold air comes in behind this cold front and replacing the mild air. We will see the high pressure build in and start to get some sunshine back a part of the picture, and quite a nice warm-up is going to be on the way as we go towards the weekend. Let's check your forecast from Channel 11 on the Carnegie Carnegie Science Center. Windy and colder. Showers going over to snowflakes. And again, there may be a slushy coating on grassy surfaces. 30 degrees for a low. Please watch for slick spots first thing in the morning as you get out there for the rush hour. Flakes ending during the early afternoon. And then we'll go into a variable cloud situation. West-northwest winds in the 10 to 20 mile per hour range. Our high tomorrow 36. And we'll check out that 5-day forecast for you now. We're down to 25 tomorrow night. And we go into a mix of clouds and sun for Friday, but it's going to be on the brisk side, 43 degrees, and then falling to the 20s at night. A lot of sun for Saturday, and here comes the warm-up. 48 on Saturday, and we see 57 with a mix of clouds and sun on Sunday, and then into the mid-60s, 66 degrees with a lot of sunshine Monday of next week. And we'll take you out to a 6 to 10-day outlook when we talk again at 6:15. David?
All right, sir, thanks very much. Well, after years of debate and construction, one part of the Mon-Fayette Expressway is finally open tonight. You can ride on the toll road from Uniontown to the West Virginia line starting today. Channel 11's Washington County Bureau Chief Stu Brown has the story.
The official opening of this expressway is accompanied by rain, but that doesn't stop local leaders from predicting it will help bring about a bright new future for Fayette County.
We travel to Florida and we go to Tennessee a lot, and believe me, this is the route we take, and we're very excited over this.
Tracy Rogers joins hundreds of folks in a tent on the highway as Governor Ridge cuts the ceremonial banner that calls it the Road to Progress. This 6-mile stretch, called the Mason-Dixon Link, will eventually be part of the 68-mile expressway from Morgantown, West Virginia to Pittsburgh.
So I think it's long-term, both strategically important locally, but going to tie this part of the Pennsylvania into southern markets.
The highway cuts through an area that has long seen high unemployment and lagging commercial development. Local leaders regard the expressway as a key part of a plan to attract new business. Residents also look forward to safer driving and saving time.
The highways bring people together. I think that's the great thing about a highway such as this.
Operated by the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, the road has toll booths with such new features as toll charge cards for truckers and other heavy users, and automatic change makers up to $5 bills. For the first time in the state, call boxes will offer two-way communication with a radio operator in Harrisburg. It cost $140 million to build this section of the Mon-Fayette Expressway, and car and truck drivers will help to pay for it with their tolls ranging from 50 cents to $3.75. In Fayette County, Stuart Brown, Channel 11 News.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. And county-by-county coverage now at 5:30. Police in Westmoreland County have identified the man who was killed by a farm tractor yesterday. Max Krimpaski was working in his West Newton farm when the tractor rolled over on him. Police say it was parked on an incline and the brakes failed.
Police in Washington County think a teenage girl was abducted by her non-custodial mother. The girl had been missing since Monday. Police believe her mother picked her up at California High School and took her to Arizona.
And in Mercer County, police have found one of the 7 escapees from a Grove City school. The boy escaped from the Georgia Junior Republic last week. 6 other juveniles who also escaped are still at large.
An Auto Information Service has released the list of cars that are most targeted by car thieves. According to the CCC Information Service, the 1989 Toyota Camry is the most stolen vehicle for the 3rd year in a row. Other cars on the top 5 include the Ford F-150 truck, the Honda Accord, the Chevy C-1500, and the Acura Legend. Local college students say they don't want to pay anymore. That's why they want to sell the naming rights to a new building. We're live with the mobile newsroom.
And new at 6, Live Team 11 coverage, of course, of the day's big story of shooting spree in Wilkinsburg. New at 6, you'll hear from the negotiator who talked the gunman out of the building. And more local coverage, fire sweeps through a kennel, killing dozens of pets. You'll hear from a firefighter who risked his life to trying to save the animals. And new at 6, new details on the efforts to improve this dangerous road used by thousands in the South Hills. Local coverage you can count on, new at 6 on Channel 11 News.
A major power surge in Washington County could result in 100 new jobs. Pennsylvania Transformer Technology in Canonsburg has been awarded a 5-year contract to make power power transformers. The transformers will be used by a Detroit power company. The extra work means the Cannonsburg company could hire as many as 100 new workers in the next year.
Firefighters took only minutes to put out a raging house fire, but it still wasn't fast enough. We're covering the nation beginning in Los Angeles. A fireball quickly spread through this house this morning. One person was killed there. No word on what caused the fire.
In Los Angeles, actress Halle Berry could face felony hit-and-run charges. Police say Berry ran a red light, hit another car, and drove off without checking on the other driver. Berry suffered a forehead gash that required 20 stitches. Her publicist issued a statement that said Berry didn't know anyone else was injured.
Republican presidential candidate George W. Bush campaigning in Georgia today after yesterday's primary victories in Virginia, North Dakota, and Washington State. Bush beat John McCain by 9 percentage points. This puts some pressure back on McCain, who won in Michigan last week. Both candidates have to build up some steam before Super Tuesday.
We're getting new details right now on our big story of the day. Gunshots ring out, hitting 5 people in Wilkinsburg. We have continuing live Team 11 coverage, new at 6.
And next, local students fed up with college fees propose a new way for someone else to foot the bill for a new building on campus. That's coverage you can count on. It's back in just 90 seconds. Tonight, students at a Butler County University say they are sick and tired of paying a fee to build a new recreation building, and they say they have an idea to eliminate the fee by selling naming rights. Channel 11's Butler County Bureau Chief Ron Jay is live now with that story. Ron?
Well, David, 2 former groups of student leaders voted to build the new rec building, pay for it with student fees, and then name it after a retiring president of the school. But the present school leaders say they want to sell the naming of that rec center and keep the fees.
We have the right to do so. We had a referendum in 1999, in November of 1999, which the students of this campus voted to sell the naming rights. So we, as their representative, are working on their behalf to do so.
In 1994, a different group of student body leaders voted not only to name the rec center after retiring Slippery Rock president Dr. Robert Abersold, but to charge students $65 each per year for 25 years to pay the $11 million cost of the building. The present leaders believe if the naming rights are sold to a corporation, the $65 annual fee or a reduced fee could help students in other ways.
If President Abersold is actually in favor of helping students, but I think what better way to help students than to funnel money into organizations such as athletics, student organizations, and clubs.
The school, however, maintains the student body government is showing a disregard for the work and wishes of past student leaders.
We might be able to work together and generate some revenue either from donors or from marketing rights related to interior parts of the building, such as the large gymnasium that also serves as a concert venue.
Dedication of the Robert Abersold Rec Center comes up March 10th, unless the students get their way. Reporting live, Ron Jay, Channel 11 News.
All right, thanks, Ron. A tractor-trailer lost its brakes today and crashed into several cars on a local roadway. We're covering Allegheny County beginning on Pittsburgh's north side. The accident happened this morning on the I-279 off-ramp at the East Street exit. The rig crashed into 4 other cars. It caused a massive traffic backup. One person was taken to Allegheny General Hospital with a minor injury. The 2,000 Pennies for Patients campaign began today at the Walmart in Gibsonia. This is the 3rd annual campaign, which benefits the St. Barnabas Charitable Foundation's Free Care Fund. Channel 11's Jodine Costanzo served as Mistress of Ceremonies today. The goal of the campaign is to collect 1 million pennies. The donations will be used to provide medical care for poor and low-income patients at the St. Barnabas nursing homes.
That's all for Channel 11 News First at 5.
Channel 11 News at 6 starts right now.
A deadly shooting spree in Wilkinsburg. 5 people are shot at an apartment and at 2 fast food restaurants. Tensions run high as the gunman rushes into a building full of people. Children are later rescued from that building. Then relief as the suspect is captured and driven away.
You watch the drama unfold live on Channel 11 and PCNC all afternoon as police search for the gunman responsible for the violence that was apparently racially motivated.
Here is the very latest now. 2 people are dead. They have not yet been identified. 3 people are wounded. They're at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital, and the suspected gunman, Ronald Taylor, is in custody. We have Team 11 coverage. Amy Marcinkowitz talks with a maintenance worker who had a close call at the start of the shootings. Dr. Mike Rosen will update us on the victims. Alan Jennings talked with the man who got the suspect to surrender, and Rick Earl talks with people trapped inside the Penn West building when the gunman went inside. We start with Amy live in Wilkinsburg. Amy, what have you learned new since 5:30?
Well, Peggy, I can tell you that we have confirmed the first person shot was the maintenance man at Taylor's apartment who came to fix his door. He was the first person shot and killed. 5 people shot in this tragedy. A community tonight is asking why, and at least 2 people I talked with say they're glad they didn't meet up with this guy today. Looking at the weapons, police say Ronald Taylor could have done more damage. Still, in a matter of minutes, police say he went down this block on a shooting spree. Shot a maintenance man at point-blank range. Police say because he didn't fix his door right.
It would have been a one shot if he'd have come.
John DeWitt is also a maintenance man at the Woodside Garden Apartments where Taylor lives. He was also working on that door. He got away before the violence started.
We just finished the door and I come out of the apartment. I was picking up things and he told me, he was calling me names, and he says, you're going to be dead.
Police say Taylor shot a Burger King employee, shot an innocent man sitting in this van at McDonald's, went inside behind the counter, shot the manager, and then back outside to the drive-thru and shot a man waiting for his lunch. The whole time, Rebecca Van Kirk, Taylor's landlord, knew he was gunning for her.
He shot my contractor in the throat.
There at the building?
There at the building on Wood Street in front of my other maintenance man.
Police say he got sidetracked, barricaded himself in this building where 37 kids were in daycare, senior citizens in therapy, and doctors and nurses wondering who he was when he entered with a gun.
So he had one bullet left, and he didn't know which one to use it on.
Now, we can tell you at this hour, police are still questioning Taylor. A lot of people in this community want to know why, want to know what the motive was, and maybe we will get some of those answers after police finish questioning this suspect. Reporting live in Wilkinsburg, I'm Amy Marcinkowitz, Channel 11 News.
All right, thanks, Amy. We're going to check back with you later.
Now for the latest on the conditions of the surviving patients, we join Dr. Mike Rosen live at UPMC. Mike.
Well, all the victims were male. There were 5 of them. All of them were in critical condition. One was taken to Mercy Hospital. He has expired. The other 4 ranged in ages between the 20s and 50s. One of them has died. That was the maintenance worker, and he died apparently, as the doctor said here earlier in a news conference, from very severe chest wounds.
The other 3 victims that arrived also had sustained single gunshot wounds. 2 of the victims had sustained gunshot wounds to the head, and 1 had sustained a gunshot wound to the face. Dr. Clancy and I coordinated the care and resuscitation along with emergency medicine, critical care, anesthesia, etc.
Here's the status of the other 3 victims. They all suffered 1 gunshot wound, as the doctor said, all very serious injuries. Now, 1 has actually a pretty good prognosis. That was the one that was shot in the face. He has multiple facial trauma. He was alert, oriented, conversant, but he does have a breathing tube down his throat now. He is going to have surgery in the near future. The second victim, we don't know what his prognosis is going to be. He had a gunshot wound to the right side of his head. He is currently in surgery. The last victim, unfortunately, his prognosis is not good. He is likely not to survive. He had a very severe injury to his head, and he's in a very deep coma. Reporting live from UPMC in Oakland, I'm Dr. Mike Rosen, Channel 11 News.
All right, thanks, Mike. We're learning more tonight about the suspect believed to be responsible for this lunchtime shooting spree, Ronald Taylor. Alan Jennings has been uncovering information about Taylor all afternoon, and Alan's live with new details for us at 6.
Peggy, we talked to the hostage negotiator today who talked Taylor into surrendering. It was hostage negotiator Sergeant John Fisher from the Pittsburgh Police Department. After a few tense hours, he finally surrendered.
What kind of questions did he ask about the victims?
At one point, he made an inquiry as to how many people were shot and their general condition.
How did you get him to put down his weapon and come out?
Obviously, that was a choice of his own. The only thing I could do was talk to him and try to persuade him. I think that largely took place due to the fact that he was concerned about his mother. He has a 65-year-old mother. And he was back and forth between taking his life, versus having his mother see him spend the rest of his life in jail. Those were his thoughts, and I just tried to emphasize to him that at least he had an obligation or concern for his mother, and that he should, opt to surrender.
Did he ask for anything? Did he make any demands or ask for water, cigarettes, or anything?
He never made any demands. He asked for cigarettes at one point, and then he asked for water. I tried to get an exchange for him to at least set the gun down. He held it in his right hand the whole time. He wouldn't agree to that, but for good faith, we did give him some cigarettes and some water.
Taylor is in the Allegheny County Jail tonight. There is no word on when he is going to be arraigned. There's a news conference set for 10 p.m. tonight here at Wilkinsburg Police Department on the steps of the building. We'll be there. Live in Wilkinsburg, Alan Jennings, Channel 11 News.
Hey, Alan, thank you very much. It was, of course, a terrifying afternoon for local parents. The Penn West building also houses a daycare center. This was one of the most dramatic scenes of the day. Parents and police rushed to escort the 37 children out of the building to safety. Police say the gunman was never near the daycare, luckily. Parents tell us, though, that's little consolation.
Traumatizing. The only thing that was going through my mind that this man was going to either get the kids and shoot them. Never know what was going to happen. I was just gone. My mind was blank, just blank.
The children were kept away from the daycare for nearly an hour after the gunman surrendered. And the people in that daycare weren't the only ones trapped in the Penn West building. Chopper 11 over that scene right now. The scene was a tense one right up until the time the suspect was led out of the building. And Rick Earl talked with some of the people trapped inside with the suspect. Rick.
Well, David, the gunman went into the Penn West building. That building, of course, you see behind me right there where the light is on inside the building. Police say he never took any hostages, but many people who work here were trapped inside.
I came outside, there was 3 shots fired right across the street there.
Kevin Campbell is the manager of this drugstore. He heard the gunfire and retreated into his store.
I heard the 3 shots and then people running.
Then what did you do?
Came back into the store.
Well, we was coming out for a break.
This woman was on her way out of the Penn West building when the gunfire erupted.
As soon as we hit the door, it was some gunshots and everybody was running towards the door. And we all ran into the building when they mentioned gunshots.
She and her co-workers ran into the Wilkins house right next door.
The building was full of police. Yeah, they was full of police. And then we was worried because some of our clients' kids is upstairs in the daycare, and that's what our major concern was about the kids.
A little scary. We didn't know what was going on.
Janet Lukic works in the Penn West building. She was trapped inside with 10 co-workers.
We just all kind of stayed together, so we knew we had all 10 people at the same spot, but we phoned our family and friends to let them know we were okay.
Now, throughout the standoff, police did manage to evacuate a number of people from the Penn West building. Now, many workers were understandably upset and decided to go home, but I did talk to a few workers who opted to go back to work. For now, reporting live in Wilkinsburg, Rick Earl, Channel 11 News.
All right, Rick, thanks a lot. We'll go back live to Amy Marcinkowitz later in the newscast with the latest on the victims and the suspect. And tonight at 11, complete continuing coverage on the shooting spree. When the big story breaks, coverage you can count on is on Channel 11 News. We have more local news coverage, all new at 6 tonight. A little girl is mauled by a pit bull while playing on the playground. We're live to explain what happened.
New details on the threat of a U.S. Airways strike. Find out why flight attendants say their chaos plan might not affect your flights.
And local coverage, dozens of dogs and cats die when a fire breaks out at a kennel. You'll hear from firefighters who tried to save the pets. That's coverage you can count on Channel 11 News.
A 6-year-old Westmoreland County girl is recovering tonight after a vicious attack by a pit bull. Sierra Moreschi was playing on a swing in a Charleroi park when she was mauled by the dog. Channel 11's Stacia Ertis talked to the girl's mother, and she's live to explain what happened. Stacia?
Well, Peggy, this was a horrible attack on a little girl who loves dogs, and now her mother is calling on pit bulls to be outlawed. Now, here's what happened. Apparently, the pit bull's owner let it wander without a leash over to the busy playground where it brutally attacked Sierra. The owner then took off running with his dog, an 8-month-old female named Rage. Glenn Shipley of Animal Control helped track them down.
I've never seen a dog act like this dog did. He was just totally out of control, and he just wanted to bite anything that he could.
He just totally mauled her. From what I understand, they couldn't get this dog off of her. Somebody has to recognize that these dogs are completely dangerous. They should not be allowed here.
Now, the dog's owner, Steve Chestnut, is known to police. He is now facing reckless endangerment and leash law charges. But Sierra's mom says that's not enough. Her daughter suffered a partially severed ear and bites all over her body. Now, the dog was destroyed. We did learn today, though, it did not have rabies. Still, Sierra's mom says it's going to take a while for her daughter to recover, both physically and emotionally. Reporting live from the newsroom, Stacia Urtis, Channel 11 News.
Okay, Stacia, thanks a lot. Tonight, we're asking your opinion on the first-grade school shooting in Michigan. Prosecutors say that child is too young to face charges, but should the adult who gave him access to the gun be held responsible for the 6-year-old girl's death? The results are overwhelming. 286 of you say yes, 26 say no. Call in with your vote. 1-877-833-WPXI, extension poll. Final results tonight on 11 at 11. And of course, our big story of the day, deadly shooting rampage in Wilkinsburg.
We're gathering new details in the aftermath of the shootings, and we'll have more live coverage ahead.
And new at 6, firefighters risked their lives to save pets from a burning kennel. We have the complete story.
And we have new details on efforts to make this road used by thousands of drivers safer.
Plus, if you see news happening in your area, call us toll-free. The number there on your screen, it's 1-800-237-WPXI.
Coming up, the fleecing of America, and as a major storm marches across the country, new evidence why this wild weather may be with us for years. That's next here on NBC Nightly News.
A tragic fire kills dozens of animals at a Mercer County kennel. That fire happened yesterday at the Strayhaven Kennel in Hempfield Township. And Channel 11's Ron Jay took the mobile newsroom to talk with the firefighters who tried to save the pets. Ron.
Of those 60 animals killed, 30 of them were dogs, 30 of them cats. Firefighters did manage to save 5 dogs.
The kennels that were close to the fire, you knew there was just nothing that you could get out of those. At that point in time, we were trying to save the property. Unfortunately, there wasn't much that could be done.
Strayhaven is a non-profit organization staffed mainly by volunteers. It received no county or state assistance and operates on donations and fundraisers. 4 of the 5 dogs saved from the fire were taken to the Greenville Veterinary Clinic. 1 has already been adopted by one of the workers here. The 5th dog is in another clinic. The shelter had a lot of live-ins, only putting animals to sleep when they displayed distemper. The manager is doubly upset because 4 of the animals that died were her personal pets.
I personally lost 2 of my own dogs. They were here just so I could play with them when I was at work. 2 boxers I lost. I lost 2 cats that I'd had for 18 and 20 years. They just lived here because everybody loved them.
Over $100,000 damages to this nonprofit organization. If you'd like to help them rebuild, call 724-588-7038. In Greenville, Ron Jay, Channel 11 News.
New details tonight on a dangerous road in Pleasant Hills. The Pleasant Hills Council ordered a traffic engineering study on Lebanon Church Road. People living on Rich Allen and Clover Drive say there have been too many accidents there. PennDOT says there isn't enough traffic for a traffic light at that intersection. Council will use the recommendations to make changes at the intersection.
Well, if U.S. Airways doesn't shut down first, a flight attendant strike might not be so bad on Pittsburgh flyers. Flight attendants plan to engage in selective strikes beginning on March 25th. In a letter to flight attendants, a union leader says, quote, "Our goal in chaos at U.S. Airways will be to target the cities in which other major airlines have a substantial presence in the market." Now, most of Pittsburgh's flights are from U.S. Airways. The flight attendants will decide which flights to strike in the coming days.
Some Latrobe Bulletin workers marked the 1-year anniversary of forming a union with an informational picket line at the newspaper office today. The workers protested what they call a breakdown in contract talks with management. The union claims the newspaper's owners delayed bargaining sessions and changed working conditions. The newspaper's owner couldn't be reached for comment.
Well, Powerball fever has hit West Virginia tonight. The jackpot there is worth $100 million. West Virginia is one of 20 states taking part in the Powerball. Lottery hopefuls are coming in droves for a chance at the big prize. Not everyone who buys a ticket, of course, is from West Virginia. Plenty of people come in from out of state for a chance at that major jackpot.
It gets very busy. The lines do get backed up. They play 25 to 30 at a time, so it gets pretty backed up. People from Pittsburgh comes down here.
They buy a lot of tickets?
Yes.
You bet. The odds of winning the jackpot are about 1 in 80 million, but why not take a chance? After taxes, the winner would get about $51 million.
The
This is Channel 11 Carnegie Science Center weather.
Hello, Trafford senior citizens. Thanks for the hospitality shown me there at your meeting this afternoon. And if you did any driving around today, you did it in some rain showers. They've been in here off and on. Scattered showers will be with us at midnight tonight. And 40 degrees. We'll be at 30 by 6 in the morning. Cold front goes through, so we change over to some snow showers. There may be a slushy accumulation on grassy surfaces. Windy with flurries, 33 at noon, and mostly cloudy, 36 at 6 in the evening. So a different kind of a day coming up on the horizon tomorrow. Rain showers, moderate in intensity in southern Butler County and moving into the northwest corner of Allegheny. And Aliquippa, Ambridge with moderate downpours, Wexford, Ingomar, on up to Valencia, Evans City. You've got them too. Take it easy out there. If you're going to be driving out and about, there may be a ponded roadway or two to deal with. Let me show you some temperatures. Expected lows tonight. First of all, 51 degrees is the current rating, 58 for our high, and 41 for the low this morning at Pittsburgh International, 77% humidity, and west winds going at 17 an hour. Pressure rising 2982, and 0.14 of an inch of rain in the gauge at the airport. Overnight lows at or near 30 degrees. Watch for a slick spot. First thing in the morning, we will only go to mid-30s for highs tomorrow with, again, some windy conditions and some flurries blowing her out in western Pennsylvania. One cold front is through. The second one goes through, and that changes our rain showers over to snow showers overnight. And the cold air kind of drains in with those blustery west-northwest winds. Eventually, high pressure will get in here with some sun towards the weekend and a warm-up. The forecast from Channel 11 in the Carnegie Science Center looking like this. Windy and cold, showers going over to snowflakes. Let's call it 30 degrees first thing in the morning. Tomorrow, flakes ending by early afternoon. We go into a variable cloud situation. The high 36. And then for our 5-day forecast, the balance of it looking like this. 25 tomorrow night, a mix of clouds and sun. Friday, we go to 43. And then the warm-up gets rolling. 48 on Saturday with sun. Partly sunny, 57 by Sunday. And a lot of sun and 66 degrees on Monday of next week. We're going to take you out to the 6 to 10-day outlook now. Picking it up Tuesday, March 7. Partly sunny, 50 degrees. Look at Wednesday. Clouds thickening. There'll be some showers by evening. 67 degrees for the high. And showers and thunderstorms around here. Thursday, March 9, a high of 56. And then a little brief cool down. We go to 42 on Friday the 10th with a mix of clouds and sun. And in the mid-40s on Saturday, March 11. And so there's your forecast for the next 10 days. Back to the desk.
Yes, sir. Thanks very much. Well, Hempfield Township supervisors have turned to a lawyer to handle contract talks with the road crews there. Twice last month, union members refused to work overtime to remove snow. Now, township supervisors have hired a professional labor attorney to jumpstart negotiations with Teamsters Local 30. Both sides have met several times since the contract expired December 22nd, but little progress has been made.
The federal government is offering low-interest loans to homeowners and businesses damaged by last weekend's flooding. The federal loans will be given to residents and business owners in Allegheny, Fayette, Greene, Washington, and Westmoreland counties. Homeowners can borrow up to $200,000 to repair primary residences.
Our live team coverage of the day's big story continues. In just minutes, we're back at the scene of today's deadly shooting rampage to recap the latest information.
I'm Sam Nover. An arbitrator reduces the John Rocker suspension. The details are coming up. And the Steelers officially announced the signing of a new quarterback today. The sports is straight ahead.
Triple Team Traffic, only on Channel 11 Morning News. Coverage you can count on.
Welcome back. The Steelers finally admitted today what the rest of the world knew on Monday. They have signed free agent quarterback Kent Graham to a 3-year contract worth $5.1 million. In order to do so, the Steelers had to rework the contract of fullback John Whitman. The 31-year-old Graham was not re-signed by the New York Giants, where over the past 2 years he was 10-5 as a starter. It was a situation that he reflected on when he visited Pittsburgh just a week ago today.
Yeah, in '98, I thought I was going to be in New York for a long time, and you know, I was 10-4 there as a starter, and so I felt like I had done a good job there, and feel like I am a starter in this league, and I just need to get an opportunity to get in there and play and prove that somewhere else, and continue to get better.
In what could only be described as a victory for the Baseball Players Union, John Rocker had his suspension cut in half today. The ruling handed down by an independent arbitrator reduced his suspension to the first 14 days of the regular season and allows him to report to training camp tomorrow. In addition, a $20,000 fine was cut to $5,000.
I think that John realizes that he needs to mend his place on this team with his teammates. First and foremost, and I believe that that's his intention.
The other negative story in baseball walked into a drug rehab center today in Tampa, Florida. Yankees outfielder Darryl Strawberry issued a statement saying that he intends to stay in rehab for the foreseeable future. He has been banned from baseball for 1 year. Penguins have taken their 5-game winless streak to Western Canada for the start of a 2-game road trip. They play in Calgary tonight, in Edmonton on Saturday. Jaromir Jagr, by the way, continues to undergo a treatment on his thigh at home after being released from the hospital yesterday. And, of course, John Fedko will have highlights, early highlights of that Penguins game, which I believe starts about 10:30 tonight. He'll be around at 11.
All right, John. Sam?
That's all right, David. I understand.
It's been a long day. What can I say? My apologies. We have new information on our big story of the day. Of course, 2 people were killed, 3 wounded in a deadly shooting spree in Wilkinsburg. The suspect, Ronald Taylor, is in custody, and Channel 11's Amy Marcinkiewicz is live at the scene with the new details. Amy.
Yes, David, and as police question him tonight, the coroner's office has just confirmed for us the names of 2 of the victims. I can tell you they are 55-year-old John Kroll, K-R-O-L-L, of Tappet. He is the maintenance man. He was the first person shot at point-blank range. He died. 71-year-old Joseph Healy of Wilkinsburg. Now, we don't know if he was a customer or the McDonald's manager, but we can tell you that the coroner's office tells us he is dead. The other 3 people that were injured are in critical condition tonight in local hospitals. This has been a devastating day for this community. It basically shut down the town when police sealed off a 4-block area as a crime scene. But already, folks will try to start the healing process. The Christian Church in Wilkinsburg is holding an anti-violence vigil and prayer service tonight at 7 o'clock. That's just in about a half an hour. Wilkinsburg police will update us at 10 o'clock tonight at a news conference. Of course, we will be there. We will carry that news conference live on PCNC, and we will, of course, bring you the very latest information in a live report tonight on 11 at 11. Reporting live in Wilkinsburg, Amy Marcinkiewicz, Channel 11 News.
All right, Amy, thank you. And you can talk with us about today's tragedy on Talkback on PCNC. The number is 333-PCNC.
I'll be along to take your calls in just a couple of minutes there on PCNC. You can also send your messages online at realpittsburgh.com. And Darius and I will see you back here tonight for 11 at 11.
Watch for news every hour for coverage you can count on Channel 11 News. Good night.
To find out more about what's happening around town, log on to our website.
The latest on today's tragedy in Wilkinsburg, straight ahead on Night Talk.
Studio A, here's John McIntyre.
Hi everybody, welcome to the broadcast. Well, you probably know about today's horrible tragedy in Wilkinsburg. As you probably know, 2 people are dead and 3 others were wounded today. Police say the man responsible for all of this is a man named Ronald Taylor. Before we finish up this evening on the Night Talk program, we will hear from Mayor Wilbert Young, the mayor of Wilkinsburg, John Fisher, the Pittsburgh police hostage negotiator who persuaded Mr. Taylor to give himself up, John DeWitt, a maintenance man at the scene who was in on the beginnings of this and thinks he may have been partially responsible for angering the suspect. We will talk on the telephone to Janet Lukic, who was among those trapped in a building that was for a while occupied by Mr. Taylor and who was understandably frightened for a time as a result. You will hear on videotape from a man by the name of Arthur Moore who actually burst into Mr. Taylor's apartment after he set it on fire. And Dr. Paul Friday, a counselor, will be here as well to tell us how some of these people might try to cope with the understandable grief that results from a tragedy like this. First, we'll get to the local angle on this in just a moment, but we want you to see how it played nationally across the country today. It was the lead story on NBC Nightly News, and here is how it played on NBC earlier this evening.
Around 11 a.m., the first sign of danger. Police respond to trouble at a suburban apartment building near Pittsburgh. Find a man shot to death after a dispute. The apartment on fire. Moments later, the terror in this small town accelerates.
Almost immediately, we got information at the McDonald's that there were multiple gunshot victims there.
I came outside, there was 3 shots fired right across the street there.
As patrons scatter, he walks across the street, then allegedly goes up to a car in a parking lot and shoots a man in the head as the man's horrified stepdaughter looks on. Without warning, he shoots another man inside the restaurant. Then witnesses say again outside to the drive-thru, where he shoots the driver of this car. 5 people have now been shot. It's less than an hour since the shooting began. As police give chase, they too become targets.
The actor at that time, when he was confronted by our officers, pulled his firearm, aimed, and fired 2 rounds at our officers.
After firing at 2 policemen, the rampage becomes a frightening standoff as the shooter retreats into a nearby building, according to police. 37 children are in a daycare center on the 3rd floor. Then the first break. The children are led to safety before they become hostages. After hours of negotiations with more potential victims trapped in the building, the shooter finally gives up. 39-year-old Ronald Taylor is taken into custody. The toll in Wilkinsburg, 3 wounded, 2 dead. Late this afternoon, President Clinton commented on the latest rash of shootings.
These incidents, particularly the one yesterday in Michigan, call on us to recognize the fact that we simply haven't done everything we can do to keep guns away from criminals and children.
What happens now? An all too familiar scenario. Another town will try to come to grips with a sudden outburst of random violence, and at least 2 families will start to mourn. Pat Dawson, NBC News, Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania.
Let's go live now to Wilkinsburg, and reporter Steve Chenevey, who is going to cover a news conference which will take place in about an hour. Steve, who's going to talk, and do you have any idea what they might say? Hi, Steve. You're probably unable to hear us right now from the looks of things. All right, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll try to get back to Steve later in the broadcast if we are able to. Let's take a commercial break right now. When we come back, we will hear from Mayor Wilbert Young of Wilkinsburg when Night Talk continues on the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel. Let's go back live now to Steve Chenevey. We've established communication. Steve, where are you in Wilkinsburg? Who's holding the news conference at 10? And do you have any idea what they might say?
Well, not at this point. Obviously, there's a lot that they could say, a lot of things to talk about, and a lot of people in town are talking. One of those conversations going on behind the closed doors of the City Council chamber right now, inside the mayor, police chief, and other city officials, trying to decide how they're going to continue to look into this situation. We'll learn more at about 10 o'clock when we expect to hear more from them. Around town, obviously, everybody talking about this incident. I guess you could say that the overwhelming reaction is shock. A lot of people saying that, sure, they might have heard a few bullets ring through the air before, but nothing like this. They liken it to the other incidents like in Michigan yesterday and other shootings around the country, saying we didn't expect anything like that would ever happen in the Pittsburgh area. Well, here we are, and it's happened. So a lot of people trying to accept that and get used to it. People having all kinds of reactions. One man we talked to who was actually inside the McDonald's today, a World War II veteran, said it was like a combat zone, and that's how he likened the experience that was going on today. A lot of people praising the police for their actions as far as what unfolded throughout the day. And I can tell you, for being here all day, hundreds of police officers from all over the area converging on this activity. The big question is tonight, obviously, what drove this guy to do this, and that's what's on the minds of a lot of people here in Wilkinsburg tonight, John.
Steve, we know we'll hear from you later on at 10 o'clock and again at 11 on Channel 11 News. Thanks so much for joining us briefly tonight.
Anytime, buddy.
Appreciate it. Let's talk now to Mayor Wilbert Young of Wilkinsburg, who has joined us. Steve obviously doesn't know that the police chief may be behind those closed doors, but the mayor is with us here in the Night Talk program. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you.
From what you've been able to determine, do you have any idea, I'll put the question that Steve raised to you, what drove Ronald Taylor?
We don't. We have absolutely no idea what drove him to this situation. We look at our records, and we have never found an incident where we've ever been called to his residence. We don't have, at this point, we can't find any relationship that we've had with him that would have indicated that this might occur.
As you know, there have been suggestions that he made comments to some people that he was angry at white people. Have you heard about that, and have you been able to find anything more out about it?
Yeah, we have heard that, and there are continuing to interview witnesses, and I suspect some of the witnesses that they're interviewing at this point are folks who might say that they've heard that, and so we're waiting to find out. And it's unfortunate If he said it, it's unfortunate. If he felt that way, it's unfortunate that this happened. Period.
How were you able to cope with all of this today? I'm sure it was sheer chaos. How did you and your people perform? And I realize you had assistance, I believe, from both the Allegheny County Police Department and the Pittsburgh Police Department.
Oh yeah, we had actually there were way more than that. We had Allegheny County, the FBI, state police, county police, sheriff department. The surrounding boroughs of Swissville and Edgewood, and it was well coordinated. They were able to arrest the actor without firing any shots, and I think that was significant.
Very significant, and I believe it was your officers who had surrounded him at one point, and I think it was either you or the chief in a news conference earlier today who said they showed remarkable restraint because they could have taken him out, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually fired 2 shots at them, and I guess at that point they had an opportunity to do that. Or they didn't. No one else was hurt past the 5 people, and he's under arrest, and now we might be able to find out what drove him to do this.
Are you worried about the impact, short-term or long-term, on the town, this kind of a horrible tragedy?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely. I still feel sort of numb about this, and I got to believe that most of the folks in the community feel the same way. This is something that's impacted every single resident of the borough. So it's something that we're going to have to look at how we get through it in the short term and in the long term.
Are you beginning to formulate any plans? What do you do tomorrow to start helping people cope and sort of putting all of this in perspective?
Well, we've even started tonight. We've had teams out providing counseling to people who feel that they needed it, and there were some folks who were taking advantage of that. Wilkinsburg have always been called the city of churches, so I suspect that the clergy is going to play a significant role in that. The churches are a significant part of everything that happens in Wilkinsburg, so we're going to have to continue to rely on them to play a role.
We may take a few phone calls for our guests tonight, not too many. 333 PCNC is the number to call. Betty is on the line for the mayor. Hi, Betty. How are you tonight? Betty, still there?
I'd like to have a question for the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I commend them for what they did today, the black and white officers. And they're quick to judge when a white man kills a black man. Now this man come out forward and said he hates all whites and he's going to kill them. Then they wonder why our cops are on their defensive all the time. They're both wrong on both sides.
Betty, thank you for your call. And obviously she's referring to all of the racial tension that has existed, and we'll find out more just how central that was to this case, and I realize you're still investigating that. But would you care to comment on all of that?
My position is that it's wrong if anyone attacks anyone for race. Whether it's a black person attacking a white person attacking a black person. That's the wrong thing to do. It's a hate crime no matter which way it goes. And if this occurred, and we're not sure that it occurred for this reason, but if it occurred, it was the wrong thing to do for that reason and for any other reason.
Mayor Young, we know you've got a busy evening ahead, and we will let you get on your way. Thanks so much for coming on the program tonight.
Thank you.
Mayor Wilbert Young, you'll be seeing him on the days to come, not only on the local news stations nationally, but I think starting tomorrow morning on all of the major network national shows. Back in a moment with the hostage negotiator who persuaded Mr. Taylor to give himself up when Night Talk continues next.
The official transportation provider of Night Talk is Pittsburgh Limousine. Whether it's for business or a special night on the town, Pittsburgh Limousine is the one clear choice in transportation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel talking about the tragedy in Wilkinsburg today. Here's the man who persuaded Ronald Taylor to give himself up when he was holed up in the building there that was the focus of attention all day. He is John Fisher, a Pittsburgh Police Department hostage negotiator. Welcome. There are many victims and there are many people involved in this, but you, sir, in my view, are a bona fide hero. Congratulations. How did you do it?
Well, thank you. I don't know if I'm a bona fide hero, but thank you anyhow. We were called in, I guess, to assist Wilkinsburg We initially got a call that there were 5 people shot at the McDonald's on Penn Avenue. And myself and I was with another sergeant, Sergeant Mike Croner, we responded to that area. And there was chaos, a lot of confusion as to who the gunman was, where he was. As things began to develop and we got more information, we found that he was in a building out in that area. And the Pittsburgh Police SWAT team arrived, as well as the Allegheny County Police SWAT team. A SWAT lieutenant from the city of Pittsburgh was on the scene, and he said that they had a location on the suspected gunman. And they asked for a hostage negotiator. I just happened to be there, so I was escorted into the building where I started the negotiations.
And that building, among other things, housed a daycare center, I believe. Is the same building we're talking about?
That's what I was told afterwards.
Right, and a Hope care facility, which cares for old people, some of whom are in wheelchairs.
Again, that's what I was told afterwards.
So, well, you didn't know that at the time, but of course, a lot of those people were in potential danger, and they didn't know it at the time, but they knew that they weren't allowed to leave the building because apparently police, from what I'm told, had instructed them to all, sort of lay down and stay put, not knowing what floor this guy would go to. So how did you first contact him? On the telephone? Or?
No, it was face-to-face negotiations. What I mean by that is we weren't looking at each other as you and I were. He was at the end of a hall. He couldn't escape and at the position he was in. And I was at the opposite, and we were about 40 feet apart. And I had a position inside of an office where I could stick my head out of a doorway and look down the hall at him and talk to him from there.
So what do you say to him? How do you talk somebody like that into giving themselves up?
Oh, it's not easy. I initially just tried to establish rapport with him, his name, his age, anything to keep him talking. His intent at that point, he kept telling me, was that he was going to shoot himself. He wanted to commit suicide.
And you wanted to talk him out of that?
Absolutely, yes. I tried to keep him, or try to refocus him on other things. At one point, he expressed a concern for his mother. He told me his mother was 65 years old and that he really didn't want her to have to see him spend the rest of his life in prison, and that he'd rather just shoot himself. I tried to reason with him, and I mentioned that perhaps that would hurt her even more if he were to take his life. And so through the course of negotiations, I kept trying to emphasize that point, his mother and some other family members, until he finally came around and decided to surrender.
And do you think that's what finally persuaded him not to kill himself? Was just the impact of that act on his relatives?
I believe it was, yes. Specifically, probably his mother.
Well, we've talked about motive on the program, and it's been talked about all day, all over the media. And you mentioned to me in a conversation prior to the broadcast that he did mention to you that he had a disdain, and maybe that's not strong enough a word, for white police officers.
That's right. He mentioned that, and
what did he say, or how did he put it? If you can,
he told me that he hated white police officers, and then he said that in general he didn't trust any police officers at all. He didn't carry that into a general sense that he hated white people. He never told me that. He just said white police officers, and that he distrusted all police officers.
All right, so he didn't say, I killed those people today because I hate white police officers, or I killed them because I hate white people. He was more or less expressing apprehension from talking to you because he hates white police officers.
That's the way that I interpreted that, yes, initially, until I developed a rapport with him.
And so, but he didn't talk about the motive?
No, he didn't. No, he never mentioned a motive to me.
Did he talk about these maintenance guys at the apartment building where it all started, with whom he had had disagreements?
He said that if you would call that a motive, and I certainly can't at this point, but he said that today that's what pushed him over the edge, was an ongoing problem that he had with a landlord and a maintenance man that were in the building, that worked in the building where he lived.
So you're talking to this guy for 2 hours, and at times I guess you're just trying to keep him talking. I mean, do you actually end up talking about things that have nothing to do with the crisis just to keep him talking? I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know what.
Again, you try to keep him focused off of, I guess, whatever's going to drive him to take his life, which at that time was the situation he was in, and I guess coming to realize what he had done. Again, you just try to keep him focused in other directions. I asked him about his family life, if he had children, generalities, just to try to keep him talking.
Did he say why he hates white police officers?
No, he didn't. The only thing that he went further on to say, in generally speaking, was that he felt that police officers in general wanted to frame black people, that they wanted to lock black people up for no reason, and Again, I tried to steer him away from that. I emphasized that although I'm a white police officer, if those were my true feelings, I wouldn't be here trying to talk you out of killing yourself. And I hope that got through to him.
It was either the police chief or the mayor, we were talking about it earlier today, or earlier this evening, who was holding a news conference, and one of them commented they showed great restraint because he was isolated and we could have taken him out. Why didn't you take him out? And I'm not saying you shouldn't have. You captured him successfully, and so all's well that ends well.
I guess that's always an option. I mean, and that's really a very last and final resort for the police department. I mean, had that had to occur, I guess so be it. But I mean, there would have been a lot of unanswered questions, I think, at this point had that happened. I mean, specifically, why did he do this? What was going through his mind? And he would have just became another unanswered question. So, fortunately, that didn't have to happen.
Let me try to squeeze in a phone call here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Here's a call from Bill. Bill, go ahead, please.
Hi, John. I wonder if the police officer heard the interviews I saw on TV, on the local TV, with 3 people where before the shooting started that he hated white people, and that 5 people that were shot. This is predominantly black area, Wilkinsburg, but all his victims were white. So I think it was racial. And watching the NBC national news, there was absolutely no indication that the perpetrator was black and all the victims were white. If there was even anything racial involved.
I think the national media, is trying to stay away from that unless it becomes firmly established that it's an issue. Certainly, there's reason to believe it might be.
Yeah, I think if the situation was reversed, John, that would probably been the lead story, that it was a racial shooting.
Bill, I appreciate your call and understand your point. You probably don't have, I assume you don't have any comment on that, or if you do, please go ahead.
No, I haven't. I hadn't heard what he said. I haven't heard the news since I left that area out there, so I really can't comment.
Was there ever a point during your discussion today when you thought, uh-oh, he's going to kill himself? I mean, he's too far over the edge. I've lost him.
Yeah, there were a number of times through the negotiations that I thought that was going to happen. He had this loaded gun in his hand, and he continued to place it under his chin, place it through his head, and sometimes he'd put the barrel in his mouth.
So you could see him, not directly, but sort of? I mean,
No, I was looking directly at him.
Okay.
And were you ever 40 feet away sitting down.
Did he threaten, 40 feet away sitting down, did he threaten to turn the gun on you?
No. Inadvertently, while he would be waving the gun, it pointed in my direction a number of times. But again, I had cover, and I made that known to him that I was concerned. And at that point, he told me that he didn't want to do me any harm. His intent was at that point was not to shoot me or harm me.
So what actually happened when he finally put the gun down? Did he walk up to you? Did you walk up to him? Did he put it on the ground?
I tried to use some suggestive reasoning. I told him, when you surrender, this is what we would like you to do. And I gave him specific instructions about the gun and any other weapons that he had. I asked him to lay his gun down along with any other weapons that he had, which when he did surrender, he did. He stood up and he actually unloaded the gun, and he kicked it down the hall to my position. He then removed a knife from his pocket, just like a 4-inch pocket knife, and he did the same with that. Lastly, I asked him to walk slowly towards me to the halfway point in the hall where I told him to stop and to turn away from me and to drop to his knees and then drop into a prone position. And I explained to him the processes of what was going to take place. We didn't want any surprises. We didn't want to spook him at that point. I told him that there would be 4 police officers approaching him and that their intent was only to take him into custody and not to harm him.
And I know you do this for a living. Have you done this many times in your life or done anything similar?
I've done other negotiations, but not quite to this extent or this extreme as today.
Well, congratulations, sir. You're mighty good at your job, and the community is thankful for it.
Thank you.
John Fisher, ladies and gentlemen, of the Pittsburgh Police Department. Back in a moment, we will talk with a maintenance man at whom Ronald Taylor was angry, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment on Night Talk.
Night Talk is sponsored in part by Highfield Open MRI, the strongest open magnet in Pittsburgh.
Back on Night Talk, we're spending the hour talking about the tragedy in Wilkinsburg. By the way, if you feel like joining with people from the area to discuss this tomorrow night, 11 Listens, a Channel 11 a town meeting will be held tomorrow at the Hosanna House in Wilkinsburg, 8 to 9 o'clock. It may indeed be on the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel, televised live 8 to 9 o'clock. Of that we are not certain yet, but we are certain that they'll be gathering at 8 o'clock at the Hosanna House tomorrow night if you'd like to join with other members of that community and talk about it. Meet, please, now John DeWitt, who is a maintenance man at the apartment building that Ronald Taylor lived at. John, welcome. You know this guy from before, and he had sort of a battle with you, or running verbal dialogue. Tell us about all of that.
Well, he just didn't like me. And when we were putting the door up, he called me a white racist pig.
And that was today. You went to put a new door on his house.
Right.
And why did he start calling you a white racist pig?
Just didn't like me. He called me white racist pig, white trash. He was calling me everything, and I tried to ignore him. Finally, I told him, I said, why don't you just shut up? And he just kept on.
All right, so when you said, why don't you just shut up, did he threaten you in any way?
No, he just kept mouthing off the whole time.
I know from a conversation we had before we went on the air, at one point you mentioned, I think you picked up a hammer because you thought maybe...
Well, we were done. We had finished the door, and we were out in the hall, and he came out like in a threatening way, and I picked up the hammer because I wasn't sure what he was going to do. And that's when he told me, he says, you're a dead man. He says, you have to come in this building sometime. But I just blew it off. I didn't...
You thought it was an idle threat?
Yeah. But then there was another woman come up the hall, and I went to her apartment. Well, after we'd taken our tools down, I went to her apartment, and...
Because she had some maintenance project.
Yeah, she had a door locked that she couldn't get open. And I went to her... Well, we went down to the first floor, and then I went back up to her apartment, which was on the same floor. And went in there, and apparently we passed each other somewhere on the line. If he'd have found me, he'd have probably shot me.
So you might have been hanging around his apartment, had this other woman not come to you with the problem with her door, and he might have found you, in other words, and you might not.
Yeah, I would have been outside with the one he shot.
Now, have you fixed things there before and had battles with him before?
Yeah, when he first moved in, we had trouble. Trouble with him.
Is it really, I mean, is it the landlord he's mad at, or is it you guys?
Both of us.
Huh.
He was mad at both of us.
Now, you knew the maintenance man who he shot and killed one who died earlier today, at least according to police and according to the reports we've received. And his name again was?
John Kroll.
And I'm very sorry to hear that, because were you guys fairly close?
Yeah, I liked him one heck of a lot.
And you guys have been working there together as maintenance guys for a while?
Around 5 years between him and I was working. He's been there a lot longer than that, but that's who I started with when I first started up there.
And according to you, Ronald Taylor, he was calling him names too, right? I mean, it was...
No, he never said nothing to this guy.
Really?
And Johnny never said a word to him or anything. It was always me. He was always hollering at me, making remarks to me.
How are you feeling tonight? How are you holding up in light of all of this?
Well, it's all right until I start thinking about when he died. Because, well, I really didn't know anything about it until 3:30 this afternoon. I knew he was shot, but...
Did you just hear about it on the news or something?
No, they had me up at the building. They wouldn't let me go. The police had me up there doing interviews.
But you didn't think, even though this guy was, according to you, calling you a white racist pig and he'd exhibited anger towards you a lot, you didn't really think he was going to snap and really go over the edge?
No, I didn't. I don't know what caused him to go over. But I know he came out in the hall and he told me, he says, you're dead. And I knew he meant it. Because I said to Johnny, I said, I'm glad you're here to hear this, because when I get back, I'm going to make them call the police on him. Now, I don't know if that set him off or what set him off.
You think he may have overheard you telling...
Oh, he was standing there when I said that.
Okay, so he knew there was a possibility you were going to call the police.
Right.
And you would have done that just because he was threatening you and...
Right.
And when he did threaten you, how did he threaten you?
He was standing right face to face when he did this.
And what did he say?
He said to me, he says, you're a dead man. I just took it as an idle threat. I never thought he'd shoot anybody.
In your previous encounters with him, he'd expressed anger. You said, any statements about not particularly being fond of white people?
Well, not any of that. He just asked me if I was racist. And I told him, no. I said, I have a good friend that's colorblind. And he says, well, he says, you're racist. And that was it. So I didn't pursue it anymore. I went back. He had called the office and told him I wouldn't do anything. And I told my manager, I said, maybe you ought to send, I work with another black man, I said, maybe you should send him over there. instead of me. And I was kind of leery about going over there today on kind of that. I kind of wish I hadn't.
Do you mind if we take a couple phone calls here and see what some folks had to say?
No, I don't know.
Here is Art. Art, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I just want to say I'm glad you didn't get hurt, John. I'm enjoying the program tonight.
All right, Art, appreciate your call, and I'm sure a lot of people, your wife is here with you. I know she's happy you didn't get hurt. Here's a call from Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to make a statement. I mean, I know there's been, as you know, a litany of high-profile cases, not just here in Pittsburgh, but across the country, of incidents involving law enforcement officers and minority members of the community. And, I mean, this particular suspect was clearly wrong for choosing this course of action. But I think society is going to continue to be at risk of further incidents like this until there's a greater mutual respect between law enforcement officers and members of the community, and just just respect in general.
Well, you could be right, although I don't know. In my view, it certainly doesn't justify any of that, even though there just tension exists and there have been wrongs on both sides. But no killing is justified by any so-called racial tension.
Oh, I agree. I'm just talking about the atmosphere that generates this kind of tension and hostility.
I understand, Paul, and thank you for your call. So you live in Wilkinsburg?
No, I live in North Hills.
Oh, that's right. Well, that's right. I should have known that because we talked earlier today. So are you going to keep your job? And
I'm not going back there.
No?
No.
All right, on that note, John DeWitt, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you. John DeWitt, who, but for a twist of fate, might not be with us tonight. His wife is here, and she's very glad he is. Back in a moment, we will continue our conversation about the tragedy in Wilkinsburg today.
Night Talk is sponsored in part by McCardle Surgical. Access your world.
Back on Night Talk, talking about the tragedy in Wilkinsburg. In a moment, we're going to talk on the telephone with Janet Lukic, who is among those trapped in the building that was the center of attention today that Ronald Taylor was holed up in for quite a bit of time. But first of all, I'd like you to see something gathered by PCNC Night Talk reporter Susan Brozick, who went out and was fishing to see what she could find in Wilkinsburg today. And she ran into a guy who lives in the same apartment building in which Ronald Taylor lived. And that gentleman's name is Arthur Moore. And as you may have heard, according to police, Ronald Taylor, before he went on his shooting rampage, the rampage of which he is accused, Taylor set his house, or his apartment rather, on fire. Well, Arthur Moore has a relative that lives a couple doors down, and he was afraid that it might be a fire because he saw smoke coming out of that particular apartment. He went and kicked in the door, essentially. Here is the tale, as he told it, to Susan Brozick and photographer George Parfit earlier today. Here's Arthur Moore.
My mother, she has seen some flames engulfed out this window right here, and her window is right there, so she's seen it, and then she said fire. I immediately ran down the hall, knocked on everybody's door, and then as I did that, I got to the fire extinguisher down at the bottom at the end of the hall, and I tried knocking on the door, though, and nobody would answer. The door was locked, and so I proceeded to get the fire extinguisher, and I turned around, the door was cracked now. And then I just kicks it open a little bit after I punches the fire extinguisher off the wall because it was like locked. I need a key to get it off. And I started spraying inside the apartment, which I couldn't even get all the flames out. It just kept catching.
Did you hear any shooting? What were you hearing?
Oh, I didn't. All I heard was some sawing. Like I knew the maintenance man was outside in the hallway that was sawing on something fixing that man's door, and I didn't hear no shots. I just didn't hear no more sawing. And then I seen smoke. My mother seen smoke, and I came down the hall and went down to the fourth floor to got another fire extinguisher. By that time, Wilkinsburg police did get here, and they made sure I got out the building. I was the last person to leave out the building.
Did you see anyone shot? Did you see any?
I didn't see nobody in there, but I know somebody had opened that door from in there, or they said it might have been the heat, the intense heat, could have popped the door open, but I don't know. I tried hollering, screaming, and nobody would answer, so I just sprayed from outside the door.
Now, the door you were knocking on, the one you tried to get in, that was...
The one that was on fire. I didn't know who was in it. I didn't know who lives in that apartment. My main concern was to get whoever it is in there out, because evidently they must be disabled or something. And there wasn't nobody to answer. So I tried my best, to get in there, but I couldn't walk inside the room myself.
Now, was that the maintenance man's apartment, or was that Taylor's apartment?
I do believe they say it's Taylor's apartment. I know the maintenance man don't live up on the 5th floor. My mother, she lives up here, and I know almost everybody lives up here except for the couple doors behind where Taylor is. I don't go that far down.
What did you think when all this was happening?
I just thought maybe somebody went to sleep, and left the stove on. But I didn't know it was all this. I mean, I could have got shot, opening up that door, putting out the fire. But that's I had the Lord on my side, and He protected me and let me put out half that fire as much as I could. It smelled like gasoline was in there, like he'd been doused in it.
Arthur Moore, who kicked in the door of the apartment, set a fire by Ronald Taylor, and apparently had a good deal to do with extinguishing the fire before authorities arrived. We're joined on the telephone now by Janet Lukic, who was trapped in the building that Ronald Taylor was in when the hostage negotiator, John Fisher, eventually talked him into surrendering. Janet, welcome. How are you this evening? Janet, you still with us? Janet apparently is no longer still with us. We'll try for just a moment to get her, and then if we can't get her, we'll take a commercial break and try to get her afterwards. Janet Lukic, can you hear me? Hi, Janet. Hi, how are you? All right, I'll tell you what. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Paul Friday, and hopefully as well by Ms. Janet Lukic. Stay with us on Night Talk on the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel.
The official transportation provider of Night Talk is Pittsburgh Limousine, the one clear choice in transportation.
I believe Janet Lukic is with us now, and as we mentioned, she was trapped in a building, in the same building that Ronald Taylor was in until they finally talked him into surrendering. Janet, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So happy to hear you. And by the way, just what is I want to make sure I understand this, the name of the building. You work at Hope Care, correct?
No, I work for Home Help. It's a home health agency.
All right, Home Help. Yes. And among other things, you take care of a number of elderly people, some of whom are wheelchair bound.
Correct.
All right, but the name of the building which houses Home Help is?
Penn West.
It is Penn West, okay. Right. So there you are, and it also houses a daycare center.
Correct.
So there you were. How did you find out that any of this was going on? Tell us the story, if you would.
Actually, it was around 11:30, and we heard multiple gunshots going off outside of our building. And when we got up to look, we saw a lot of people scattering on the street, right on West Street in front of our building. And then at that point, we saw multiple police officers with their guns, ready to go. And it was kind of a stressful situation. We weren't quite sure what was going on, but we knew something had happened.
And then somehow they contacted you eventually, right, and told you couldn't leave because the guy was in the building and your life could be in jeopardy depending on which way you went.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we were looking out the window trying to figure out what was going on, and the police were just telling us to get away from the window for our own safety and to stay low. So that's pretty much what we tried to do.
And when you say they were telling you that, they were just shouting that up at the window?
Right, because they could see us looking out to see what was going on.
All right, so you had a rather interesting tale. You had a cell phone and you managed to call your fiancé and sister?
Well, yeah, I tried to notify my family before they heard about it on the news and became panic-stricken, so I was in contact with my fiancé and with my twin sister probably every 15 to 30 minutes just to let them know what was going on.
And then they came down there and I guess were at least close enough to you that they could see the building. We're talking to you on a cell phone, as you said, periodically.
Right. They were across the street at the Eckerd Drug, so I went to the window just to wave so that they knew that I was truly okay.
What was that conversation like? Were you scared out of your mind? I'm sure they were very frightened for you.
I think they were a lot more frightened than I was. We were not quite sure what was going on, and that's probably a good thing.
Right. Oh, because you might have been more frightened if you knew there was a guy who'd already shot apparently 5 people one floor down.
Yeah. Whenever we would contact our family members, they would fill us in as to what was going on because we had no idea.
Right. How are you holding up this evening, then?
I'm okay. I'm fine.
Getting a deluge with a few media calls here and there?
A few.
But were you allowed to leave the building before the hostage crisis was resolved?
Yes.
Okay, so at some point they knew when he was isolated, and then they told you guys you could leave.
Yeah, they felt that it was safe for us to evacuate the building. We evacuated right after they evacuated the daycare, and all the children were out safely.
Wow. Okay, well listen, we're so glad that you survived nicely, and are you going back to work tomorrow, do you know?
You know what, that I'm not sure of. I will if we're allowed.
Okay, well listen, either way, we're glad you're alive, and we're glad you're still with us, and sorry you had to go through that today, but thanks for joining us on the telephone tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Janet Lukic, who, as we said, was in the Penn West building. Here now is Dr. Paul Friday, clinical psychologist. He is the chief of clinical psychology at UPMC Shadyside. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, John.
So, how do people cope? And obviously it depends on how close they were to the tragedy, but that gives us an idea of how people try to get, and a community for that matter, tries to get through something like this.
Well, those are two big questions, how the community does it and how did the individual who were involved in it. If you're splattered with the blood and you don't have a good foundation going into an event like that, the chance of you coming out of it unscathed is not good. So it's really the bedrock that you have before an event that would be what we call a post-traumatic stress disorder. That spun out of the Second World War, Korean War, when we realized that people who were next to their best friends and they had their heads blown off and they carried that forever. And in a lot of studies that were done on veterans, we learned the most effective way to help people work through those tragedies. Now, the wars for human beings are between our ears. Sometimes the battles that we display these wars in fall out into the world. And I think that's what happened to Mr. Taylor today. His torturing was between his ears. And how he viewed his world was a torturous world. And there was very little comfort or calmness that he could be living with because he saw monsters everywhere. We're all responsible for what we do and say. Our response to this is our obligation to be perhaps stepping back from these burning trees and take a look at this forest and see what could possibly drive a man to do something like that, and to think in patterns that just locked him into a labyrinth of non-resolution. It's a true tragedy.
And some people are dealing with all kinds of guilt. Well, I assume, like, if not guilt, just very strange feelings, like John DeWitt, the maintenance man, who, if he'd taken the wrong turn or decided to go back to that building or hadn't been contacted by that other woman to fix another problem, could be dead. Yet his friend, who'd been working with for 5 years, is dead tonight.
Yeah. And Mr. DeWitt and I were talking for a while before the show, and
the maintenance man.
The maintenance man.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that he's in shock. It's gonna take a little bit of time for him to sort out why it is that he's having this dinner and why this good friend of his did not, because he should have been back up into that building. And what twist of fate has us in front of that speeding car or that falling rock or this crazed man who could not differentiate reality and fantasy? It truly was a psychotic break. Very innocent people paid the price of that trauma.
Let me try to squeeze in a couple of phone calls. Here is Dave. Dave, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
All right.
Yeah, I'm pretty outraged at this event, you know. I'm a delivery driver. I go through that. I drive through that street, you know, twice a week. And to know, you know, just to think that you have to feel like you're living in Bosnia, you know, to have to watch your corner, you know, watch your back, that some, you know, individual is going to, you know, go crazy and just hate the world and make other people pay for his pain, you know. What do you do? Do you carry your own weapons and protect yourself on the streets? Because
some people will be tempted to do that.
Right.
Sure.
Dave.
You know, I have a gun. I'm a license. I have a license to, you know, carry it, but you know, I've never used it.
Well, now, if Dave came to you and said to express these concerns, what would you tell him?
Well, it's what I'm going to say to Dave right now. A lot has to do with function location in our brain, that there are different areas in our brain that do different things. And Dave, what you're tapping into is the very deep part of your brain that we call the temporal lobe. And this is where our best and worst fantasies lie. And what we're experiencing now is your worst fantasy. But it's no different than the other side of the coin of how you would feel if you hit the lottery. Now, I would ask you, what is the probability that you're going to hit the lottery? It's very low. Very, very low. The probability of this happening to you is very low. But that part of our brain, the soul of our brain, called the amygdala, kicks out perpetually these fantasies. And this is how we've survived as a species, because we have this part of the brain that constantly surveys the horizon for something that could do us in. David, the probability of something happening to you with a gun tomorrow, equivalent to what Mr. Taylor did today, is probably far, far less than you hitting the lottery. Now, whether you're going to go out and buy lottery tickets tomorrow, I don't know. But I would just offer the top part of your brain that deals with language and logic and probabilities needs to rule. And with that, you're going to feel a lot more comfort. I'm not naive. The world can be very dangerous. But it's more dangerous when we let fantasies make life decisions as opposed to probabilities.
All right, and with not much time left, any advice for the people of Wilkinsburg who are, all trying to cope with this, whether they were personally touched or not?
Stay together. I would suggest, if you're spiritual, to pray, to try and figure out what it is that's inside of us that could lead us to this tragedy.
Dr. Paul Friday, thanks so much for coming up.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate it. Good
Always
to see
a
you
pleasure.
Back in a moment with a final word. Stay with us. Well, tomorrow we will undoubtedly have more on the tragedy in Wilkinsburg, and as we mentioned, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, 8 to 9, a special Channel 11 listens at the Hosanna House in Wilkinsburg. It may be televised on PCNC immediately before Night Talk, 8 to 9. We're still checking on that. I suspect that it will be. David Johnson was on the news set anchoring for many, many hours today from the beginning of all of this, and it is still with us. David, how are you holding up?
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, and this is my job, and I enjoy my job. I hate bringing people news like this. And John, I think you've got to agree, the scenes of those children being walked across the street there, and that one little boy, I don't know how old he was, raising his hands as if to say, I surrender, don't shoot, as he was being led away by police. That's heart-wrenching stuff, and it's happening right here in Pittsburgh.
Well, normally I don't like when media people pat each other on the back in the middle of tragedies, because of course the tragedy itself is the important thing, but I must say, having watched much of your coverage today, I thought you and everybody in Channel 11 News did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I've got to give everybody a great deal of credit. The people you don't see behind the scenes. Chopper 11 did a tremendous job staying up in the air, providing those great pictures all day long. Yeah.
All right, well, David and the entire Channel 11/PCNC News team will have much more straight ahead at 10, and of course tonight at 11 as well on Channel 11. Hope to see you tomorrow night on Night Talk. So long.
Rash of deadly shooting sprees hits home in Pittsburgh when a man opens fire at a local fast food restaurant. 2 of them, in fact, leaving 2 people dead.
You're watching the original 10 o'clock news on Pittsburgh Cable News Channel.
And around 11:30, we heard gunfire going off. We thought was gunfire, and when we jumped up out of our chairs, we realized that's what it was.
SWAT teams led workers and kids to safety after shots were fired this morning in Wilkinsburg, but the damage was already done. 5 people shot, 2 of them killed. Good evening. Thanks for watching our 10 o'clock news right now. Tragedy grips the Pittsburgh area when deadly gunfire rings out at 2 fast food restaurants in Wilkinsburg. The first shots were fired shortly before 10 o'clock this morning, or 11 o'clock, I should say, at the Woodside Garden Apartments in Wilkinsburg. And from there, the gunman went to the Burger King along Penn Avenue, then to the McDonald's nearby. He was finally arrested shortly after 2 o'clock in the Penn West apartment building nearby. Wilkinsburg police are getting ready to hold a news conference concerning today's tragic developments, and that's where Channel 11's Steve Shenevy is live. Steve.
Hey, David, the news conference started just about a minute ago. I'm going to step out of the way and let you hear it firsthand from Wilkinsburg Police Chief Gerald Brewer.
Yes, sir, that occurred. We weren't building much of a profile. We were actually following him apparently from from one location to the Burger King to McDonald's, and then until we subsequently saw him, and he fired the 2 shots at our officers and ultimately went in the building. As I said, we didn't have a history with this individual. There were no telltale signs, no clues that would lead us to believe that this individual was somebody that we had to watch. It was just an isolated incident that occurred in our borough.
Chief, does the evidence suggest that the suspect targeted his victims based on the color of their skin?
I don't believe there's any evidence to that fact as of yet. I have heard comments that he was, or that he had said that he was going to shoot white people, but that's just from hearsay. We don't have that. We don't know that to be factual at this time.
Eyewitness testimony. Have you heard to the effect that he moved people out of the way, saying, "I'm not going to shoot you," and that was
that I haven't heard. Just essentially what actually the media has been reporting.
Chief, I understand police are now executing a search warrant in his apartment. Can you tell us anything about that?
Has that already happened?
I believe they're in the process of doing that this time.
Right. They're apparently in the process of doing it. We had information they were going to, but I don't know that it's occurred as of yet.
Can you fill in any of the other blanks about a motive here? Talk to his friends or his family members or associates that you might have dealt with.
At this point in time, there's still quite a bit of a lack of information as to any specific motive. As I said, there have been some allegations of some racial overtones, but at this point in time, we have nothing factual to understand why this individual did what he did.
What do you know about the origin of this gun?
Nothing at this point. It was a .22 caliber, I believe.
Can you tell us anything about the identities of the remaining victims?
I don't have those names, and I'm still not aware of the information as far as the next of kin, so I can't release any of that personally.
Chief, have you spoken to Mr. Taylor directly?
Just briefly, early in the day when he was brought in.
What did he have to say?
He wanted a cigarette.
Earlier you said there was no indication.
No.
Police fired back at all, and that still holds true? No.
Certainly, we did not fire. He opened fire twice on 2 of our patrol officers. The officers did not return fire. They did have cover and concealment. Unfortunately, he got into the building, but Lieutenant Coson and them moved very quickly to isolate him in that building, even though he moved at one time into the room with some of the people that were in the wheelchairs. But we were able to effectuate that dialogue and contain him there while our people were frantically moving those people from the higher floors, including the children, out of there. He did point his gun a couple of times at Lieutenant Toot and others, and they did. There again, with cover and concealment, they felt the need not to fire back at that time.
It sounds like that your officers showed some very admirable restraint in that situation, because I'm sure that they were interested in protecting life and property. Could you comment on their conduct through the course of this?
Well, certainly, that's part of our mission statement, that we value human life, and we obviously do not want to take anybody's life at any point in time. And as I said, it's easy to second-guess people, and what we did today we might not do tomorrow, but we did the right thing today, and I'm proud of the officers for what they did, and nothing further occurred after the ultimate shooting of the victim, so it was a good piece of teamwork.
Chief, can you describe Taylor's demeanor? We saw him earlier being transferred. He had a smile on his face. Can you talk more about that?
He seemed to be very nonchalant. He wasn't very verbal. As I said, he did ask for a cigarette. I inquired as to any specific needs he might have, like the restroom and things of that nature, and he just said he wanted a cigarette, and we didn't give that to him.
Chief, along the same line that Taylor found, do you have any information about the residency of his family in Wilkinsburg, long-term, short-term, mother?
I have nothing on that.
But is he a resident? Was he a resident?
He was a resident of 1208.
Of that address, but nothing about mother. Did the brother also live in 1208?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
No.
No, or you don't know?
No.
Brother did not?
No.
But was from Wilkinsburg?
Brother? I don't know.
Can you tell us how international the brother was in actually ending this?
I can't give you specific information. He was brought to me, and I turned him over to the county SWAT team people for the negotiator.
What are your next steps going to be as you try to piece together what the motive was and establish if it was, in fact, a racially motivated hate crime? And are you going to be trying to talk to the witnesses, the several suspects, the hostages?
Well, at this point in time, the criminal homicide portion of this investigation is in the hands of the county. We'll obviously work as closely with them as we need to. We would like to establish more information as to his motives, his motivation, and specifically the hate crime aspect of this. So we will continue to look at all all those things, in an attempt to find more witnesses and other people that might not have come forward. We intend to re-canvass the area, and we're also going to attempt to work very closely with the community to start this healing process.
Chief, two-part question. Do you have any better idea how many people were actually in that building, the 10 West building, at the time? And also, we know, at least we understand, that each of the victims was shot once. Do you know how many shots were actually fired by this individual?
Do we have that information? I don't believe they have the total number.
We don't know the total number of shots fired.
And the numbers of the people?
As far as the number of people, approximately 125.
Approximately 125 in the building, but as far as the shots fired, the numbers we don't have.
In addition to the hostages that were being held and people in wheelchairs, there's some information that he had pointed a gun at some women that worked in the doctor's office there.
Yes.
Can you confirm that he said that he had a bullet left and he was, which one of you will I use on?
We had heard that we had gotten information that he had one bullet left, but I don't know that we had confirmed that at the time. He did take the arm of one of the females, I understand, and tried to move that female to another room or something, but Lieutenant Toot was successful in keeping him pretty well focused in one particular area, and Lieutenant Koson was in that area also. We were just trying to keep him totally distracted as our officers were just running through the building getting people out of there.
Chief, was there an actual hostage type situation? Did he ever tell anyone he was holding them?
Well, the fact that he was armed and in custody of control of those people in there, that made it a hostage situation.
Chief, did he still have a bullet with him when he was apprehended?
I don't. Pardon?
I don't know.
We don't know.
What was his brother? What is his brother's name? Did his brother come to you directly, or?
I believe his brother came to the scene and was referred to me, and I made contact, and then again turned him over to the county people for their SWAT team or for the negotiator.
Chief, when the suspect...
I don't have the name.
His name is what?
I don't have the name.
When the suspect opened fire, the police officers did not fire back. Can you explain that? Tell us why.
There again, that was their call at the time. He was somewhat isolated. There were not. There were businesses in the area in that line of fire, and I guess they felt that they had a good visual on him. We had a lot of units coming to set up a perimeter, and therefore it was their call to not take that shot at that time.
So they followed policy and procedure as far as that's concerned?
Well, certainly, obviously, under the force continuum, given in those circumstances, the fact they were fired upon, they certainly had the right to